Hi there. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet podcast for women who wonder. Frankly, as we go through life, I'm sure we wonder about a great deal. First as little kids, then as adolescents, then as young women, then as transitional women. What are we calling ourselves these days? And then you get to this point in life, or my point in life, when you're postmenopausal and wondering what's next. Wondering if the parade already passed you by. Join me, Wonder Wendy. I'm going to be your host as we talk about some of these unique challenges that face women today in a new millennium, going through menopause and trying to live a rich, full life. There might even be a few men and younger women that want to listen in too. That's okay. But there's a roller coaster and we're all on it. And I'm going to be your guide to help you figure out when you should close your eyes, when you should hang on, and maybe we'll explore some ideas for what works for you if it doesn't work for me, or vice versa. So join the conversation, pick up your favorite beverage, and we'll talk to you soon. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet.
Hello, everybody. Believe it or not, this is the second time I'm recording this episode. The first time, I apparently didn't have my microphone plugged in. Not entirely certain. Something went horribly sideways. I have tested my microphone this time, and hopefully this time you're going to hear what I have to say. Now, I have to change my storyline a little bit because when I recorded yesterday's episode, I did a demonstration. I took this little plant right here, which those of you watching on video can see it, and those of you who are listening have to believe that I am holding a plant. It's called a pothos, P-O-T-H-O-S, which is different from pathos, P-A-T-H-O-S, which has to do with an abundance of emotional energy, and maybe that's appropriate too. But in this case, we're looking at the pothos plant. And this little plant has a meaning to me right now. Because a couple weeks ago, I was at a seminar, which I've done a lot of that recently, and a venture capitalist was talking. And this guy's going on, and I know why people want to hear him. He's made a lot of money. So let's listen to him. Let's learn from him. Let's learn to make a lot of money just like him. But he wasn't telling us how he made money per se, because first of all, he had to have money to invest money. That's how you become a venture capitalist. You have money, you invest that money, and you make good choices. Well, if you're a successful venture capitalist, you make lots of money. If you're an unsuccessful venture capitalist, you lose your money. And he wasn't going to show us how he made money. He was going to show us what he looked for when he invested in somebody. So his message was really geared at telling the audience how to get his attention and how to do what makes you feel successful. And I'll be honest with you, it was approaching lunchtime, and maybe my eyes were starting to roll back into my head because I was bored. It was warm. I was tired. Maybe I wasn't giving him 100% of my attention. But all of a sudden, I heard something that he said, or at least I think this is what he said. I heard the phrase, repot yourself. Now, he didn't continue with that metaphor, so I really don't know if that's what he said or not, or whether the universe just kind of sent me that message and I heard it and I went, repot yourself, repot yourself. And my mind went immediately to those houseplants we have that get so cramped and crowded that even though they may look healthy, like this cute little pothos plant I'm holding in my hand, leaves are shiny, stem is in nice condition. Even though it looks good, maybe it's in a pot that's too small. And in a short period of time, it won't be as healthy if you don't give it what it needs. We thought about this for a couple of weeks. And then I said, no, this is a message for the wonderful bucket list life. And I did a little bit of research because we'll be really honest here. Green thumb, not really my thing. I love plants. I love nature. But A house plant in my house usually suffers from lack of attention. It will eventually die, quite honestly, with the exception of the cactus I got for my birthday last year, which I have learned to give an ice cube every couple of weeks, and that's all it wants. And it's still looking quite healthy. So not all plants die in my care. Knowing this, I chose something fairly easy to care for. And I went to the plant store and I found this. Well, this is the pot it came in. The pothos came in this tiny little pot, which is probably about 2.5 inches wide. And it looked healthy enough. But as soon as I picked it up and I turned over the pot, I could see roots coming out of the bottom of the pot. This little plant was already looking for new space to expand and taking every opportunity to do so. And it needed to be replanted. So I knew this was perfect for our illustration. And I'm sure it looked great in yesterday's demonstration. We'll just go with that answer because it wasn't as smooth as I would have wanted it to be. But again, that's the bucket list life. Sometimes things don't go the way we planned. Sometimes they don't look the way we wanted them to look. Does that make it bad? Does that mean we should quit? Does that mean we should stop trying? Of course not. We keep trying. We embrace the moment. We make the best of a situation because that's life. And living a wonderful bucket list life means that you make the best of whatever situation. So that little pothos plant cost $5.98. Yeah. Going back to the venture capitalist, it's a worthwhile investment. My ROI is a little splash of green, which could go on a bathroom counter or kitchen counter. You know, like you do. I hear that plants make the air healthier, and I have to believe that. So I pulled that little plant out of its container, and I found this lovely little bucket. And again, for those of you watching, you'll see that I replanted it into a bucket. I didn't buy a brand new pot at the store where I bought the plant. Somehow that felt extravagant and unnecessary. I went to a secondhand store and I was looking for a container that would be right for this plant. And I found, of all things, bucket, just about the right size. Not a full-size mopping bucket, just a little bucket. So I also knew this bucket would rust if I put the plant directly into it. So I lined it with a plastic container that I'd gotten from takeout food. Easily done. A little bit of dirt, relocation, loosen up that root mass that is digging out of the bottom. And suddenly we have the wonderful bucket list plant ready to put in my kitchen. I think it's going to end up in a bathroom. There's a sunlight in the bathroom that should give it just the right amount of sunlight. So, like I said, I've already recorded this and I'm kind of forgetting what I've already told you. So we've got this plant. We've repotted this plant. What do we learn from it? Well, first of all, I had to look for care instructions. Turns out pothos doesn't like direct sunlight. If you put it out in the direct sunlight, that little sucker's going to get burned. Those leaves will turn brown and you'll know it's time to move it. Hopefully it won't be too late. If it doesn't get enough sunlight, it'll get pale and anemic. So it needs indirect sunlight. My bathroom has a sunlight, so maybe it will survive in there and give just that right touch of healthy green liveliness that that little bathroom actually needs. Here's my favorite part. That plant, $5.98, the pot, $1.99, the plastic liner, free. And yet, it's changing my day. So like I said, what do we learn from that? We need to learn that we need enough room to grow into the next phase of our life. It can feel so comfortable in one spot. You get there, you're comfy where you are. Why do you want to move? We do it all the time. I'm thirsty, but I'm comfortable on the couch. I really don't want to move, but I'm thirsty. You have a couple choices. Hey, hon, could you bring me a drink, please? I'm thirsty. Or you can say, I need that drink and my legs probably need to move. And if I've been sitting here long enough to get thirsty, it's probably time to move. Yeah. Tough to think about life that way. And that's a microcosm. Obviously, this is not a life-ending thing. You are probably not going to grow so inert that you sit on your couch until you turn into dust. At some point, you will get up. But in life, it takes more. And repotting, I pulled that pot plant out, loosened up the roots, put it in fresh soil, gave it some water. I didn't do it violently. I didn't do it carelessly, just enough to give it that room to grow, to be reminded that those roots should stop growing in circles and get trapped in themselves. We do that. We get trapped in ourselves. We roll into those little circles. We just need a little more space to grow, a little more water to thrive, a little more light to shine. And if you do it too quickly, if you shake those roots, it can feel like shock at first. It can take a little care. I said, life lesson, repot yourself. Don't rip your life apart. Gently reframe it and find a way to find a new comfort, the next version of you. You need a way to free up those roots so that there's room for soil and water and growth. It's interesting how the top of a plant can look one way and what's actually happening underneath can be something completely different. Most healthy plants you see in the store are about ready to be repotted. That extreme growth on top is very different from what's happening beneath. So the healthiest moments in your life are often when you need to be considering what needs to change for the next phase. I know I just scared a whole lot of people, and I'm sorry about that. But at some point, something's going to have to change. And wouldn't you rather have thought about it and be in control of that change, or at least be prepared for that change? Because control is an illusion, like me having finished my podcast yesterday and then finding out it wasn't recording my voice. And even as I record this, I'm thinking, oh God, what if it's happening again? I tested the microphone. It should be fine. But if it's not, we'll record it again this afternoon. We'll figure it out. If that symmetry between the top of a plant and the roots makes me think of when I was buying a tree for my yard in Vermont. I was looking at a hardwood tree. And as I talked to the people at the nursery about what kind of tree I wanted and what size of tree I wanted, which, believe it or not, there's a whole science to this. In the case of my tree that I was looking at, if I bought a 6 to 8 inch trunk tree, the cost was just about double of a 4-inch trunk tree. By the trunk of the tree, I mean that part just a few inches off the ground where the tree is just brown, And then they explained to me that tree that was 6 to 8 inches and twice as expensive, the root ball is really too small to support the size of that tree. It's equalized, but for the first few years after it's planted, it will do nothing growing up top. It'll just expand underneath to support itself so it can continue to grow up top. If I bought that 4-inch tree, it would immediately start to grow because the root ball and the top are well balanced and they would grow together. So spending half as much on a smaller tree, within a couple of years, I would have the same size tree as the one I would have bought for twice the cost. I hope that was clear. Sometimes you have to consider that balance of growing roots and growing upwards, keeping yourself in a system underneath so that there's room for what's next. It's not that anything's wrong with your life. It's just time for expansion. And if you stop growing, I hate to tell you this, the opposite of growth is slow death or fast death, depending on how aggressively you become inert. You will eventually grow out of the container you are in. That's healthy. That's a good thing. Don't freak out. It's a good thing. So think of it this way. Maybe the next phase of your life doesn't mean you have to try harder. It means you just need to repot yourself. Maybe put it into a more beautiful container. Or maybe put it into a simple container that allows the plant room to grow. You know what? It doesn't have to be a fancy pot from the big expensive store. It can be something you found in a thrift shop. It could be a bowl in your cabinet. All it needs is the room to grow. That's it. Where do you thrive? Do you thrive in direct sunlight? Or would you burn out in direct sunlight, like this poor little pothos would? Do you need constant input, constant motion, or are you someone who actually needs space to dry out between demands? I read that this pothos actually doesn't want to be watered too regularly. Like you're supposed to let the top inch or two get dry between waterings. That's what it needs for optimal growth. Find your optimal watering. Find your optimal growth. Now, as you know, I say always stay hydrated. So in that case, I'm going to say make sure you're hydrated. But what I'm saying is find what works best for you, for your mind, for your body, for your soul. Do you thrive in warmth and energy or quiet and calm? One of the things I love about this little pothos is it's very adaptable. It can survive in different conditions. But again, watch out for the extremes that can have an adverse effect upon it. And we are the same way. Oh, and all too often, we live in the extremes and we call them normal. Crazy. Those labels, those thoughts of what's right, what's wrong, got illustrated by the flower bed in my front yard. Actually, it's right in front of my house. But when we moved in, it was an empty flower bed. It was obviously getting water because it was moist. So it was set up to the sprinkler system. But nothing I planted there lasted more than a few months because of the extreme temperatures and sunshine. After a while, I gave up. Whatever. It's just going to be part of the architecture with no flowers, no plants. Maybe I should get a sculpture. I don't know. But before I could put a sculpture in there, one day I looked out and it was brimming with this bushy plant. Actually, I had to ask the landscaper to cut it down a little bit because it was getting so big. And I said to him, I said, don't worry too much about it. It's just a weed. And he looked at me and said, that's not a weed. That's the same plant that's growing over there, intentionally planted in your yard. Well, I hadn't made that connection. This plant had reseeded itself into the flower bed and was thriving there. Remember that part about not coming out the way you expected, about adapting the way things are? That plant had done just that. It was a volunteer plant, putting itself where I didn't know it was a genuine plant. Now, what's the difference between a weed and a plant? Whether you want it there or not. So maybe you just need to reframe your thinking once in a while, because you're thinking you're a weed, and maybe you're actually a thriving plant that's supposed to be there. Just a thought. Same plant, different context, different label. And that could be you. Oh, what are some things you've been dismissing about yourself? Aren't problems. They're actually plants that just ended up where they aren't supposed to be, or you didn't expect them to be. And what if that constriction you're feeling simply means you need a little more space to be repotted? Nothing big, nothing expensive, whatever. Not everything out there that doesn't thrive where you planted it is meant to be pulled out. Maybe you just need to reframe your thinking. Oh, now I do have a friend in Vermont who is a plant whisperer. This woman can do anything with a plant. She's amazing. And she has created this incredible jungle in her home. She has so many plants everywhere, off the shelves, everywhere. It feeds her soul, it feeds her spirit. She talks to her plants. Maybe I should talk to this little pothos plant. Hello, baby, you are beautiful. Thank you for entering my life and creating oxygen. And every spring after the last frost, because she is in Vermont, she puts all those plants outside, carefully placing them where they get the right amount of sunlight, the right amount of moisture. And all the little aphids and stuff get eaten off by the wasps and the hornets and everything else. She pays attention to her plants. Maybe that's why hers thrive. I tend to forget the plants are there. And then in the fall, she brings them all back in. When I left Vermont, I gave her my one house plant at that time, a spider plant, which had always survived despite me. Hideous, tenacious little plant, tenacious. But in her care, it's turned into this huge thing. It's gorgeous. She's done a great job, and it's given off many babies and created more plants. Her thing is plants. Mine isn't, even though I appreciate her efforts. Now, I do have two friends right now who are contemplating really big moves, drastic repotting. One talking about going across the country, or maybe even out of the country, and the other a few states from where she currently lives. But in both cases, their root systems are going to have to readapt to a new environment. But they're both embracing this opportunity and contemplating what that means. So leave yourself open to the fact that you are capable of incredible transformation. You don't have to. This again, not telling you what to do, but telling you to make room for your roots to grow, whatever that might look for. From the outside, it can look dramatic. It can be scary, even risky. But isn't staying where you are a little bit risky too? I mean, we're so quick to question big moves, but we really forget to question when we're staying still, have we stopped growing? Are we doing what's best for us, for our community, for the people around us? Are we stuck? I don't know who said it first, but I've often heard it said that not making a choice is a choice. Staying where you are when something isn't working, well, that's still a decision. And if a plant is unhealthy, something has to change. You don't just stand there and say, well, let's give it more time. You look at the light, you look at the water, the temperature, the space, and you adjust accordingly. So if something in your life isn't thriving, maybe the question isn't what's wrong with me. It's what needs to change around me. How can I best create my own opportunities? This doesn't come from waiting in the wrong environment. It comes from changing it. And around here, we're building a wonderful bucket list life. Maybe you'll even have a wonderful bucket list plant, like I have. And that kind of life, it needs room to grow. So make room for yourself. Love yourself. And until next week, stay hydrated appropriately. Give your roots room to grow and look for wonder every single day. Welcome to the wonderful bucket list life, and bring a friend. Share this episode, either with a plant person or a non-plant person. Either way. Let's have a good discussion. Talk to you soon.
Like what you heard here today? Then we should be friends. I suggest you join my Facebook group. It's a good way to connect. We can have a conversation, ask me questions, whatever you want to do. It is called the Wonderful Bucket List Life. That's Wonder-Full Bucket List Life. Be a bucket lister and join me on this adventure. Or you can go to my webpage, which is Wonder Wendy and Friends, join the mailing list, learn about the book I wrote, adventures that are coming up in the future, and other podcasts. I look forward to talking to you soon, and stay hydrated. Have a great day.